my life or death, I can protect you. I will.
You have my sword.
And you have my bow.
And my axe.
It's just beautiful to look at.
The Lord of the Rings franchise changed the chemistry in my brain as a child and made me into the wretched creature I am today. You did not seriously think that a slob like me could contend with the will of consumerism. There are none who can. The Lord of the Rings The Two Towers film tie-in on PS2 by Stormfront Studios was one such product that hooked its tendrils into me. My friend bought it at release and we played it for ages at his house. When my parents came to pick me up, I told them how much I wanted the new Lord of the Rings game for PS2. And sure enough, on Christmas Day, I unwrapped a brand new copy of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Sam! What the hell is this? I never got The Two Towers in the end, and that blissful day at my friend's house was the only experience I had with it. That was over 20 years ago, so now I turn to emulation, to relive the glory days of my youth. Was the game as good as I remember? God, no. It's a mess. In fact, it turns out most of the positive memories I have of this game actually belong to the sequel, which is superior in every way imaginable. Released in 2002, about a month before the film, The Two Towers is an abridged, but also expanded retelling of the first two films. If you haven't seen the films, this game will genuinely make no sense to you. If you have seen the films, this game will genuinely make no sense to you. There's plenty of film footage between each mission to provide context, featuring the infamous morph transitions to the game models. Plus, we get narration from Viggo Mortensen himself as he describes the Fellowship's journey to Eowyn, who unfortunately plays no role in this game. But the Lord of the Rings films are anything but straightforward. And without the lore, without certain characters and world building, the game's story is just all over the place. There's nothing about the corrupting nature of the ring. Boromir doesn't try to take it. Jesus, what have they done to you, Boromir? Gollum makes no appearance, and the Fellowship is missing Sam, Merry and Pippin for some reason. The game begins with a tutorial as Isildur during the Battle of the Last Alliance, then fast forwards to Aragorn fighting the Nazgul on Weathertop. Then the game just cherry picks a few more action scenes from the first and second films. After the Battle of Amon Hen in the film, Sam and Frodo split from the Fellowship, while the rest pursue the Uruks who have kidnapped Merry and Pippin into Rohan. But without Merry and Pippin in the story, Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli just seem to show up in Rohan for no real reason and take place in the Battle of Helm's Deep. Maybe the developers were restricted in what they could show because they might spoil the film, or maybe they just didn't have time to add anything other than the bare essentials. Either way, it's an incomprehensible mess. But we're not here for Tolkien's deep lore. We're here to hunt some orc. And hunt some orc you shall. Every kind of orc there is, as a matter of fact. From Second Age Mordor orcs to Third Age Uruk-hai to the lowly goblins dwelling within Moria. My favourite fantasy creature is a goblin, cause I'll be goblin that cock. The only thing you get to do outside of beating orcs to death is beating Nazgul to death. The game is a hack and slash in the purest sense. You know the drill. You get a light attack, a heavy attack, a parry and a kick. Different combinations of those will pull off various combos. On top of these, we have a finishing move for downed enemies and a basic ranged attack system. Sounds good, right? Wrong. You thought this was a good game? We'll get to the good one once I'm done with this one. Everything about the combat feels off. The timing of just about everything hasn't been considered at all. The enemies are ruthless. There's no collective AI that stops orcs from winding up a swing to deck you the nanosecond you're up on your feet. Even the hitboxes are all wrong. If you're not standing close enough to kiss this cutie, then your sword attack is probably not going to reach him, and it feels wrong for every character. I thought it was just Gimli at first, because he's a dwarf, but even this 6'6" Dunedain's longsword isn't hitting enemies like they should. Some of that might also be the fault of the fixed camera. Sometimes you'll be really far into the distance, or more likely you're getting mobbed by a dozen or so enemies, and you barely have time to see how near or far you are to your intended target. Between each mission, you get the chance to upgrade Aragorn, Legolas or Gimli by purchasing upgrades like more health, more damage, or new combos. As the game allows you to replay past missions with other characters, you can evenly level up the team together. I, however, chose to main Gimli, because look at this beautiful thing.
I love this model of me as Gimli. I think he's such a vigorous, virile, attractive character. He's really the only person you want to play. I mean, the rest, the Aragorns, the Legolases, handsome, good-looking guys and all that thing. But for real quality warfare, you have to go for a Gimli.
The playable characters each have different base stats. Gimli is strong, but slow, in both body and mind. Though he runs like a gazelle, it takes years for him to ready his ranged attack, and I have had dozens of stalemates with enemy archers because of it. Legolas, on the other hand, is fast but weak, and likely a pillow princess. Aragorn is a balanced mix of both. But what that means is certain characters suit certain missions better. You may get through half the game as Legolas before realizing that he's too fragile to survive the onslaught at Helm's Deep. You'd have to go back to the beginning to level Aragorn or Gimli enough so that they can give it a try. It's also a super short game. You can finish the whole thing in about an hour or two. I don't think I've played a AAA game that short before, let alone a movie tie-in that's shorter than the movie it's based on. Some missions are tiny, like the Weathertop mission. It's just 2 minutes of burning Nazgul and then it's done. Most of the missions take place in a small arena. A small, beautiful for the PS2 arena, but small nonetheless. There are some larger missions which have you running through lovingly recreated Middle-earth environments, and those are usually the best ones, but others just feel like larger levels divided in two just to inflate the total number of missions. And Jesus Christ, the game drags at the end. The last 3 missions are set during the Battle of Helm's Deep, and they are, by far, the worst part of the game. All 3 are defense missions, and I know that I said that me and my friend loved playing this game, but the breached wall mission frustrated us to tears. Saruman the White assaulted Helm's Deep with 10,000 Uruk-hai, and I'm pretty sure the game makes you fight each and every one of those fuckers. God, it's bad. I'm pretty sure we had to cheat to finish the game because our collective tisms were starting to worry as parents. Once you complete the game, you unlock a wave mode inside the Tower of Orthanc. After you wipe out 20 waves of enemies, you meet Saruman at the top, where he yells at you in Hindi and then vanishes shortly after. Is this from the book? Presentation-wise, I have almost no complaints. The Two Towers is quite a good-looking game for PS2, especially the environments. They all look accurate to the films and have a lot of nice environmental effects, even if they are just glorified corridors. You're seeing the upscaled emulated version right now, and aside from the time Shaku tore the lands of Rohan asunder, I didn't have any issues. The environments are varied, have nice shadows and reflections, and are full of lots of background action to keep the scenes feeling alive. Oh, how I miss reflections in video games. The camera angles usually look cinematic, and I'm sure the game wouldn't look as good as it does if there was a free camera, but can you even see Aragorn at the moment? The game blends live action, pre-rendered and in-game cutscenes to tell the story, and the in-game cutscenes are so chaotic it's unreal. The only part that's lacking in the presentation is in some of the character models. Clearly they were trying to make them look true to life, but instead we've got whatever this thing is. But although that doesn't look like John Rhys-Davies as Gimli, it sure sounds like him. Almost all the cast members have returned to voice their characters. Orlando Bloom's as Legolas, Ian McKellen's Gandalf.
I have never played a video game in my life. I can never understand the rules.
Even Frodo Baggins, the ring bearer, played by Elijah Wood, the wig wearer. And they aren't phoning it in here. They're committed.
Ambush! Ambush!
The game is filled with behind-the-scenes footage and interviews of the cast members, where each and every one of them holds the PS2 controller in their own unique way. It adds a bit more value to the game, and most of the videos need to be unlocked by completing missions and leveling up characters. When the game first came out, this felt like the coolest way to get a sneak peek at the upcoming film. And nowadays, it's a nostalgic trip back to the days when The Lord of the Rings dominated my life. I've still got hundreds of my Games Workshop minis. I don't like being this negative when I talk about games. Life is too short to bitch about bad games when you can just play good ones instead. Even though the game fails both narratively and mechanically, it does look and sound like The Lord of the Rings. But more important than that, it managed to bring me back to my blissful larval state, when I believed that nothing would ever top the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And you know what? I was right.